Distraught by his inability to care for his dog, the man decided to bring her into the forest and abandon her rather than trying to get her adopted or taking her to a shelter. Years later, though, the forgotten pup experienced something truly remarkable, never having dreamed of such a thing in a million years. Dakota was an incredibly loving, devoted, and beautiful pet that Paul adopted as a pup. As Paul raised her, he watched her blossom into a strong and healthy canine. Paul and Dakota had the ideal relationship. They went on long walks together and were inseparable. Their bond was something special that no other man and dog could have ever achieved. As well as hunting with Dakota, Paul also liked to breed her with other dogs to produce puppies. These puppies would then be sold for quite a considerable price once they were old enough. Dakota was a fantastic and loving mother, and she cared for each and every one of her puppies after they were born right up until the moment they had to say goodbye. There was one strange thing about Dakota. She produced offspring that were very wolf-like in appearance. She had once escaped and bred with a wolf, and her 2 litters since then had all breed, a striking resemblance to the wild predators that lived in the forest. Paul was shocked, but he didn't mind. The puppies all looked exotic, and they commanded a much higher price when he sold them. But sadly, the day came when Dakota was no longer able to mother any more puppies. She had given birth to 4 litters each with 4 or 5 puppies. The repeated process was taking a toll on her body, and the vets strongly advised against Paul finding her a partner to breed with again. It was about then that Paul and Dakota's relationship started to change. Paul became colder to her, and he spent less time with her taking care of her. It was as if he was slowly but surely losing interest in his pet. One day he took Dakota for a walk. They walked and walked and walked deep into the forest, over hills, through trees, and far beyond where they had ever walked before. After a long while, Paul took her collar off and threw a stick for her to chase. She shot after it as soon as it had left her human's hand. Dakota loved playing fetch, and she dived onto the stick when it eventually landed, chewing it and rolling with it in her mouth. But when she stood, she noticed that she was all alone. She looked around, quietly whining before starting to bark, calling for her master. But Paul was nowhere to be seen. She walked the way they had come, but there was no sign of them. She was lost and she was alone. It slowly started to dawn on Dakota that she had been abandoned. With a heavy heart, she curled up into a ball on the leaves and fell asleep. When Dakota woke, it was dark and cold, but her sense of smell told her that she wasn't alone. She could smell another animal, or maybe even more than one. Looking around, she strained her eyes in the darkness to see what her senses had already picked up. Then suddenly out of the darkness came striding a large gray wolf. Dakota didn't seem afraid and stood up to greet the wolf. She was a large dog, but the wolf still towered over her. They sniffed at each other for a long while before the wolf decided to lay. Dakota paused for a moment before laying down next to him. It was clear that the 2 animals were familiar with each other. The truth was that this was the wolf that the dog had bred with several years ago. They remembered each other and felt some strange and deep animal bond. The wolf seemed to understand that Dakota was in some kind of sad distress, and he was making her a promise to protect her. This wolf was clearly the leader of a pack. Other wolves approached and sniffed at Dakota, baring their teeth and snarling, but the leader would snap at them and put them back in line. His pack would soon come to understand that even though Dakota was only a dog, she was now part of the pack, and they would have to treat her as such. Over the course of the next few months, Dakota was initiated into the pack properly. Sure, she missed Paul greatly, but as the days passed and he didn't come looking for her, it became clearer that he didn't care about her anymore. She became friends with all of the wolves and even spent time playing with them and grooming them, but her true talents lay in being a mother. Dakota had always been a fantastic parent whenever she had given birth, and one day, she had the opportunity to put her skills to good use. A female wolf had recently given birth. The process had taken a huge toll on her body. She had successfully delivered 3 cubs, but had died of exhaustion moments after they had been born. Luckily, Dakota stepped in to help raise the cubs. She treated them exactly as she did her own puppies, nursing them, grooming them, and teaching them essential life skills. As the tiny newborns grew into small and adorable wolves, Dakota watched over them and remained as protective as their own real mother would have. She felt like it was her duty and honored it with pride. When the time came for them to leave and form their own pack, she felt the same pain she had experienced any time Paul had given her own puppies away. A few years passed, and one day Dakota went to stretch her legs in the forest. She still liked to walk and even run as fast as she could, and would play games just like she did when she belonged to Paul. But what she didn't realize was that she had wandered a little too far away from her pack and into the territory of another. This was bad news, especially for a dog. Dakota happily walked along until she noticed eyes watching her from the trees. Slowly emerged many wolves. The strange wolf pack closed in on Dakota. They were not used to a dog hanging around in the forest and saw her as easy prey to kill and eat. Dakota cowered and let out a low whine as the vicious and angry-looking pack of wolves surrounded her. There was no way out. The poor dog was going to be killed, and there was nothing she could do about it. They say that before you die, your life flashes before your eyes. Well, they also say that the same happens with dogs. Dakota remembered first being adopted by Paul and how she loved spending time with him, how she produced so many puppies, and how he had eventually betrayed and left her in the forest. She remembered meeting the wolf and him taking her into their pack without question nor violence. She remembered helping to raise the cubs and loving them as if they were her own. Dakota closed her eyes and waited for the wolves to pounce, but then out of nowhere she heard another noise. 3 wolves jumped from the darkness of the forest and tackled the large wolves surrounding Dakota. The wolf pack focused on the 3 new attackers and started to defend themselves. They snarled, bit, scratched, and tried to violently take down the new enemy. But after a long fight, the strange pack retreated, defeated by the 3 strong and proud mystery wolves. All the while Dakota had laid flat against the ground and as still as a stone, hoping not to get caught up and killed in the battle. But looking up, her tails started wagging at the wolves that had just saved her. They were the 3 cubs that she had raised several years before. They had grown to be even bigger than her, but they were still instantly recognizable. She would know their looks and scent anywhere. Dakota jumped up and ran to them, grooming each in turn. Her life had been saved that day by children that weren't her own, but it was clear they saw Dakota as the mother they never had, and they never forgot the kindness that she had shown them. It just goes to show that even though humans might turn their backs on animals, other animals wouldn't ever do that. And even though they might be separated by time, distance, or even species, they were still able to love and defend each other when they needed to. So, are animals really that simple-minded, or is it us humans that underestimate them? That's for you to decide. What did you think of this incredible story? Would you be strong enough to abandon your pet if you were forced to? As always, we love to hear from you, so be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below.